Okay, we're shortly going to do a demo to demo a little bit of the technology we're working with, but I want to take a couple of minutes before we start the demo to tell you what we're looking at. So I'm going to talk you a little bit through what we're going to go and see, and then unfortunately I can't cram you all into the simulator at one time, so we're going to feed back what we're doing in the simulator back to this hall, and I'm going to grab a couple of you to take with me up to the dome, but I'm afraid at this time today it won't be all of you, but if you want to see it we can sort it out later. You can get and look in the dome. But I can tell you a little bit about our journey. So the company Augment City is a daughter company of Offshore Simulator Centre, and this was started less than a year ago.
For 15 years, we've delivered the world's most advanced offshore simulation solutions. But our exciting new journey to develop smart, sustainable cities has just begun. Humans understand data best in a visual format. Working with the UN, we created a digital twin of Ålesund, Norway, and augmented data with powerful 3D visualization tools. You can quickly interact with and interpret big data to identify trends, evaluate risk, test theories, and assess progress.
Simulation technology will be a game changer in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and Augmented City represents a unique possibility in this field.
As we upscale to other cities, join us, the UN and our partners, on a journey towards a smart and sustainable future.
Okay, we've heard a lot about collaboration, we've heard a lot about data. If you talk about data and you talk about collaboration, there's one key point to all of that, and that's us, that's humans. We need to interact and we need to collaborate with that data we've got. That data is just getting more and more and more and more complex. We're living in a world where we hear about machine learning, we hear about artificial intelligence, we hear about big data, which was one of my pet hate words, but we'll come back to that later. But we hear about all of these things, but us as humans have got to interact with all of this. Humans are designed to understand data in graphics. We're not designed to understand and read a line of text or read big piles of data. It will take us months to read through data. And this is the same if you're talking about a city or if you're talking about an offshore operation. We interact with complicated data, complicated operations through a graphical format. And that's what we're doing with this Augment City. We're augmenting that data into a digital graphical twin to allow us to understand what's going on. The eye-opener for us is when we started to work with the UN and started to look at the goals, the sustainable goals, and start to realise that there was already a huge amount of work going on here within the smart cities, which had been broken down into the different areas, and then those areas had been broken down to create, for the first time in any way I've seen, a KPI system, a key performance indicator system, from a neutral party, the UN, looking not just at smart, but looking at smart, sustainable solutions for cities. Now, this is an amazing step forward, and I think the speed that this is being picked up around the world is incredible, that so many cities are wanting to look into this and wanting to join this system. But it is a benchmark. It allows you to see where you are at this moment in time. We started to realize that we can go beyond this moment in time and start to look at how we understand this data, not just on a city-wide level, but to break it down across the city to understand how we can take this forward. So we started to say, okay, let's not just have a nice, pretty rose diagram, and it is a nice, pretty rose diagram, and this is the one for Ålesund, but let's look at these different areas, let's pick out these KPIs, and let's visualize them. So this image in the background here, we're looking at the sound levels and the traffic levels within Ålesund. At this stage, we were taking in traffic data from Google. I'll talk to you more about traffic data later. But the traffic is the ribbon, and the sound is the big red mountain in the background is the airport. That's not really a mountain in Ålesund. It's showing you this level of sound. And then through the city, you see the little clouds as you go through the city. They're showing the sound created in the city. If you were to look at the sound quality level straight away, the first thing you would do is jump to where the highest level of sound is. Now, if you've bought a house by the airport, you know you've bought a house by the airport and you have to put up with it, I'm afraid. But really, it's much more important for us to focus on where we can do something about the sound and where it will have a biggest change for the population. So then we can focus in and go straight down to looking at that data within the city level. We also looked at response times, and we've looked at lots of different things, and I won't go through this example much today, but the fire brigade really does have some issues with the traffic, and we've actually come up and looked at some solutions for that, and that's what you saw earlier. But we're talking about using a sandbox, and we've heard a lot about sandboxes today, but the way we like to talk about our sandbox is Lego. And luckily, I managed to find a lovely picture on the internet which had cities on one side and offshore on the other side. I think I need to send Lego a little thank you for that. But this is about building stuff as simply as Lego, using simulations to really put stuff together in a very, very fast way. And this is what I'm going to show you very much with the demo we have later today for offshore, but we're going to show you a little bit about it today as well with Augment City. So Sandbox is a general tool. We only have one product, and we're using exactly the same product for the offshore branch and for the smart cities. I believed that we were going to start to use this technology that we've built up over the last 15 years, and we're going to be able to use this into smart cities, and there was going to be a one-way direction of technology. Just within the last 8 months, we are integrating back already technology we've developed in smart cities into the offshore industry. This means that we've got a parallel technologies which are being built up on one platform, which are really solving problems, and we can really speed the level of innovation at very high speed. So we're talking about building, analyzing, creating complex digital twins, and working from the top down. So when we've got the data, we can put the data in. If we don't have the data, it doesn't matter. But we've got a digital twin to base everything on, and then we can go through, control, and do simulations of all of this sort of stuff. Now, the example I want to show you today, and I'm going to switch over to an example. I woke up in the middle of the night, as I often do with mad ideas, about 2 weeks ago, and thought, do we know in Ålesund where we are with CO2? Do we know how much CO2 we're producing? And then I came into the office, and if you work in my company, you'll realize that now and again, I have these crazy ideas, and they just have to run with me, and bless them, they do an amazing job. But I had this crazy idea of finding out where are we with CO2 in Ålesund, and will we be able to meet the Paris Agreement? And actually, I believe in Ålesund, and I believe in Norway, we should be far exceeding these things. So I looked at it, and there's a lot of data on the net, and we picked out straight away, and we realized that we don't have any idea where we are in Ålesund. They've got certain bits of data, but we don't exactly know where we are. So we thought, okay, how are we going to meet this if we don't even know where we are today? So we started to look at it, and we realized that the majority of CO2 in Ålesund is coming from vehicles. It's coming from transportation. We don't have a big problem with agriculture in the middle of the city here. There definitely isn't much gas and oil recovery going on in the middle of the city in Ålesund, except the simulation, of course. So we took that, and we looked at that, and we made some quick assumptions. Luckily, we're in the situation in Norway where most of our electric is hydro, over 99% is hydro, so that's clean. That's CO2 neutral. So electricity isn't an issue. So most of it is coming from vehicles on the roads, flights, and vessels. And I thought, is this data available? Within 1 hour, I made a couple of phone calls, and we talked to a couple of people, and we found not only is this data available, but most of it is actually available on the net, freely available. So we talked to the local port authorities, we talked to Vegvesenet, which is the roads, and we talked to the airport. And we got out straight away on the net, available to anybody from Vegvesenet, is the number of vehicles going through Ålesund. They've got sensors in the road, so they can pick it up, and they're electromagnetic sensors. So without looking at you, they can know your speed, but they can't do you for that, but there we go. But they know your speed, they know the size of your vehicle, they know the engine size and engine type from the electromagnetic field that you're driving over. So they can tell you if you're an electric vehicle, they can tell you if you're a diesel vehicle, they can tell you if you're a petrol vehicle, and they can tell you how big it is. And they know all of these sorts of data, so we talked to them, and that's readily available. The airport data was the easiest for us to find. And then we also looked at the vessels, and we only concentrated on the larger vessels. We weren't able to take in all the pleasure craft. We took the larger vessels. I'm going to talk a little bit about flights, because this is one which astonished me, really. So a lot of the data which has been done for flights in Ålesund in the past, looking at the amount of CO2 they make, is done on how much CO2 those flights make in Ålesund. And if you go into it, that means the CO2 that plane is making while it's still on the runway before it's lifted off. That doesn't seem very fair to me. So we looked at that and we said, okay, well, let's first of all say, if you're flying from Oslo to Ålesund, half of that CO2 has to be connected to Ålesund and half of it has to be connected to Oslo. That seems a fair way of doing it. The other thing we saw quite a lot of is, and I've made the same mistake, I've been booking flights and they say, do you want to make your flight CO2 neutral? Do you want to pay to plant some trees to do that? And you're like, oh, maybe I will. Maybe I'll have a good conscience. What they don't tell you is those trees you're planting will take 40 years to replace the CO2 you've used for that one flight. That, again, to me, doesn't seem very fair. So we wanted to work out, and we wanted to do this in data which is easy for everybody to understand. So we wanted to say, okay, rather than talking of tons of CO2, let's talk of trees to counteract that CO2 in that day. So we started to look at this, and we started to put it together, and we're going to show you this up in the dome in a minute, but I just got to point out a few things. All of these fine little bar graphs, this is traffic data. The larger bar graphs which you'll see building up is the amount totally through the day. The smaller bar graph is the hourly data. So we're talking about the hourly data, and then we're talking about the larger part. We've got the flight paths which are above us, and then we've got the vessel paths which are below us. I was quite shocked at some of these results, to be honest. But one of the things I'm going to show you in a minute is how many trees we need to plant in one day to make us carbon neutral. Can this be a solution? That's one family. That's the number of trees you need to plant to counteract the CO2 in Ålesund for one day. 259 trees per person in Ålesund. Every day. This isn't going to work. This isn't a solution. So we need to look at what other solutions there are and how we can start to solve stuff. We can look at what would happen if we made all vehicles electric. We can look at what happens if you start to put power to the quayside for vessels. We can look at hybrid vessels, and planes is a bit more tricky. But we need to be pushing forward the technology. But what I want to do now is, if you look at your label you've got on you, if you've got a little pink dot, you're a lucky winner today, because you get to come up to us with the bridge. If you don't have a little pink dot, then you're going to get a nice view of it down here in the dome. So if you're a little bit patient and give us a couple of minutes to let everybody walk up to the dome, I will be speaking from the dome, so you'll follow exactly what's going on. You'll have all the sound down here, and you'll have the video down here, and we'll go through and I'll talk you through this demo very quickly. So please follow us up to the dome if you're with us. If you're not, please make yourself comfortable, and we'll start this demo very shortly. Thank you very much. Okay, I hope you can hear me within the dome, and I hope you can hear me within as well today. We're looking at Ålesund from some distance away. We're up into the sky. We've got vessels moving around. We've got flying around. We are simulating one day and 3 minutes. So 3 minutes is a day for us. So we have got 41 flights flying in through a day. We've got all of the larger vessels coming of Ålesund. We know all of the data from each of how much CO2 each vessel is creating. We're taking vessels from 50 kilometers outside of Ålesund into the town centre. The flight paths we are looking at directly from their origin point to their destination point, and then all of the vehicles we're bringing in that data through the day. So I'm going to fly in. Bear with me with my flight. I'm used to flying around at a slow speed. We had to make the flight speed max 6 to make this demo possible. So I hope you don't get feeling seasick sitting on a bridge here with my flying. So let's try. Right, so we'll fly in, and if I can ask Anders to start running with the data for the traffic, please. So we're flying into Ålesund here. I might make it just slightly faster. Let's try. Here we go. Oh, there we go. So we're starting to fly in. We've got the ocean transparent, so we're able to see the ocean. If you look at these green lines, this is all the data from the traffic censored across the city, and we're able to extrapolate from those sensors to understand where the traffic is moving. And if you look at the hourly data, that is those small little bar graphs, and next to that you see the daily data as it builds up. In the background here, in the middle here, we have got a bar graph which is showing us, oh, I went underwater there, that's not good for all of you guys. We've got a bar graph here in the middle here, and we're showing you the 3 different parts. So there's a vessel coming in. We've made them much larger because we're moving them much faster and we want to be able to see them from a distance. We have it, so let me get this right. So yellow is traffic data, green is flight data, and I think blue is vessels, if I get that correct. And you see that the vessel started off with not much in the morning, but it's just disappeared off the screen. What that is that we're showing when cruise boats are coming in. Cruise boats are sitting on the quayside. Cruise boats are like another city. Cruise boats are creating so much CO2 into the city centre here that apparently the air quality is probably worse than Paris at some times when you've got a still day and 3 cruise boats pumping out their stuff directly in the middle of the city. So if you click through to the next stage for me, Anders. So there, let's fly up to the top here. So we're looking at that. So that is 735 tons, metric tons of CO2 produced in Ålesund every day. And that is the equivalent of our 259 trees. So that's our measurement of the 259 trees. What you also should look at here is if we look at this data sets, vehicles, as I said, is the yellow. That's under half. All the vehicles in Ålesund is under half 41 flights. So 41 flights into Ålesund is double of all other road transport in Ålesund. If you look at that again, you'll see the blue is double again, so vessels is double again of our air transport. This was new to me. We didn't have any idea of this before we started to put it together, but it shows you, for us to be able to understand and be able to work with data, we need to know where we are to begin with in the first place. So I'm going to fly us around. In fact, I'm not. I'm going to jump us. Let's jump us. I've got something on my control station here. I've got warp speed, normal speed, and tree flight. So in tree flight here, I hope you can see our family there. They're standing just by the aquarium here in Ålesund. And behind us, behind our family there, we have a football field covered with the trees that they would need to plant for 1 day of CO2. Now, if I take this further and I start to fly us out much further and fly us around, we can see how that fits into Ålesund. We can see as we go past the beautiful city of Ålesund, then we start to fly right back out. And what I want to do is show you how that works for the total population of Ålesund. So if we fly out a little bit here, and I ask you, Anders, to click the next stage, that red area, every part of that red area, even though some of that area might not like to have trees, every part of that red area would have to be covered in trees which were centred 2 meters centre to centre. So very, very tightly packed trees would need to cover that whole area to counteract the CO2 for 1 day in Ålesund. If I ask you to click the next one for me, Anders. So if we look off to the left here, we see there's a yellow area. If we made all vehicles in Ålesund electric, everything electric, all road-based vehicles electric, you would be able to take off that many trees. If we click that again, that green area, that's quite a big area. That is if we make all the vessels, when they come into port, rather than sitting there and being on hotel load, so they're running their diesel generators, and pumping out things just to create electricity to sit on hotel load. If we made them plug in and run off the electricity here in Ålesund, which is clean electric, we would be able to take away that many trees. So it shows you how important it is to be able to plug in those vessels. So today was just a little bit of a taste to show you when we start to use a bit of data, and this is something which we've put together as a hobby project in the back in the last couple of weeks. So this isn't a commercial project or anything. This is a little hobby project just to show you what's possible. But we show you that looking at data, we can really start to understand things, and we can make informed decisions, and it is transparent data. We are so used to being told things as fact without being able to see the background of it. Suddenly we can present this to the people working in industry, the people working in government, the people working in local councils, and even all the way down to the average man and woman on the street. And it's very much easier for people to understand. So I'm going to say with that I'm going to say thank you very much, and that is the end of our first demo. We will break now for lunch, and then we've got a very exciting afternoon where we start to go out to the ocean and subsea. So thank you very much, everybody. Please enjoy your lunch. If you've got questions, come and find one of my team or myself, and I'm hoping that we're going to continue to have a really interesting day. Thank you very much, everybody.